Below me is an aircraft carrier that sunk in 1918 in the Firth of Forth, and I'm going to show you what it looks like in 2025. So instead of spending hours looking for copyright-free music on YouTube, which is usually horrendous, I'm going to do a bit of talking in this video. So HMS Campania was built on the Clyde in Scotland in 1892 by a company called Fairfield Shipbuilding and Engineering. She measured in at a huge 189 metres long, which is two Big Bens stacked on top of each other. So the wreck of Campania sits in the Firth of Forth in Scotland between Edinburgh and Fife. It sits closer to the Fife side, about 1.7 kilometres off the coast. You can see there, that green buoy is the shipping channel, and the wreck maybe sits 20 metres north of the shipping channel. So you can imagine back in the day, that's why they had to wire sweep it and use explosives to get the navigation hazard down, because it's so close to it. It's quite a scrapyard down there, and you can imagine the wrecks from World War I. So weather conditions today, we're diving this on a neap tide. The wind wasn't supposed to be as strong. We've got about a 5 to 10 mile an hour wind coming from the west, which is fine, shouldn't affect us too much. So for mooring, we don't want to get the anchor anywhere near the wreck, so we're going to head a little bit north past the wreck. We've got 150 metres of umbilical on the ROV, so the plan is to launch the ROV, obviously get down to seabed, and we'll just head south towards Campania. We're not going to miss it, we're going to hit it at some point. I don't know how the wreck is orientated, I've not dived this since I was 14. Let's do it. Mud. There's Mr. ROV. In you go. So that noise you heard just there is the thrusters on the ROV, obviously working hard to get down to the bottom. Now believe it or not, this is actually good visibility for the Forth. Usually it's like pea soup, but this is good. So you can see us now, we're just heading south towards Edinburgh, and at some point we'll hit the wreck. The wreck's huge, obviously, 189 metres, so if we head south we'll be fine. You can see a bit of marine life there, and that there is a rope. I think it goes to creels. There's kind of like a line of creels sitting down there. So we're just again following along the seabed, and then boom, you hit these dead man's fingers. So anemones usually grow on shipwrecks, rocks, everything down there, so anything like a hard surface. And now you can see Campania. So it doesn't look like much because it's obviously covered in marine growth and mud, but this is all sheet metal. So this is one side of Campania, I'm not sure which side, but this is us just heading up. So we've left seabed at around 28 metres and we're ascending, and you'll see from the footage it just keeps going and going. That's how big it is, and at some points we actually got up to around 24 metres high. So it's a huge mound of metal sitting down there. So when Campania actually sank, it was so tall, when it was sitting on the bottom of the seabed, the masts were above the water. So you can imagine, sitting here, we're in 28, 30 metres of water, the masts were sitting above the water. That blows my mind. Back to the dive. This is us just exploring Campania a bit, and we come to the first ship-like feature, which is kind of like a porthole. Now looking inside here, can anyone see that? It looks to me like that's either a tree branch or something, but can you imagine a tree has floated all the way down the Forth and landed in that exact position? Bit strange. Again, moving along, we come to what looks to be a manway, which you can see the inside there is just full of silt, so there's obviously been a lot of silt deposited on this wreck. And then check this out, a bit of 19th century metalwork. Really well designed, kind of like a porthole covering, and you can see Mr. Lobsterman sitting in behind there. That's his little home. So as we were just watching the footage, I'll tell you a bit about Campania. So she was built on the Clyde in 1892. She done her first transatlantic trip from Liverpool to New York in 1893. She was named HMS Campania to start off with, and that was because she had an exclusive contract with the British Post Office, obviously delivering mail, and she had room for passengers too. And here's a picture of the rooms. Campania was the first liner to have an open fire built in, which was quite amazing at that period of time. Now check this out. You have an intact porthole, so you can see, we'll just come up a little bit, you can see the portholes there sitting open, and it's just covered in barnacles, so that has glass inside it as well, and that's an amazing find. That porthole is over 100 years old. The last time I dived it I was like 14 and I was with my dad, and there was actually quite good viz. I think we were diving it on an incoming tide, so the tide was ripping and there was actually a seal following us along at the side. Maybe I was a little bit narked, it was 30 metres. Yeah, cool experience. So you can see me here just sitting piloting the ROV when this friendly ship comes along. The guy basically just shouts along, "Are you okay?" Which is nice of him to check up on us, but we're all good, we're just diving, and the guys just continued on their merry way. That's the kind of ship I need. So back to story time with Lloydie. Campania achieved the Blue-Riband, which was a speed trophy, and that was on her second round trip. In May 1893, she crossed westbound from the UK to America, and she done it in 5 days and 21 hours. On the 21st of July 1900, Campania was underway around 30 nautical miles northeast of Tusker Light, which is in the Irish Channel. And just before 8:30 am, the visibility had fallen to zero due to fog. Campania was steaming at about 10 knots en route from New York back to Liverpool, when in the gloom, appearing from nowhere, the ship Embleton was dead ahead. Campania rammed her midships and sliced Embleton in two. Embleton sank within 60 to 80 seconds, and the forward half of Embleton plunged immediately underwater. There was 18 crew aboard Embleton. 11 of them were lost, and 7 of them were picked up by Campania's smaller boats and nearby vessels. And this wasn't the only disaster to strike Campania. In October 1905, she was crossing the Western Atlantic and she was struck by a huge green sea, thrown up by the remnants of a late season hurricane. 5 passengers were swept overboard and at least 30 were injured. And this was the first passenger fatalities in the Cunard's history. Campania had done the transatlantic crossing about 250 times, and her final voyage was in April 1914. She had steamed the Atlantic roughly 750,000 nautical miles, but new giants like the Mauretania and the Aquitania, which were new vessels, made her obsolete. Then on to the final part of Campania's story. So obviously these bigger vessels came out and made Campania obsolete, and she was sold for scrap in October 1914. She was bought back 6 weeks later by the Admiralty for £32,500 and refitted as an experimental seaplane carrier. A 160-foot wooden deck, which was soon stretched to 245 foot, let seaplanes launch directly ahead, and then on return they would land in the sea, and recovery was by crane. It was clumsy but revolutionary at the time. Then in 1918, which was Armistice Week in World War I, she was sitting at anchor off Burn Island, and a force 10 squall dragged her anchors. You can imagine the power of the wind it would be to drag the anchors of Campania. She collided first with the bow of the nearby battleship Royal Oak, and then scraped along the side of battlecruiser Glorious. Campania's hull was breached by the initial collision with Royal Oak, flooding her engine room and shutting off all main electrical power. So she was dead in the water. 5 hours after dragging anchor, she sank. All of Campania's crew on board were rescued by neighbouring vessels, so no hands were lost. And there you have it. That's us finally packed up. It's a nice day now. That's kind of what the forecast was supposed to be. It's a little bit different from this morning. I really hope you enjoyed the video, guys, and I hope you've learned something about Campania. If you've made it this far, leave a comment in the section below, like Lighthouse, and that'll be quite funny to see how many people actually watch the video. This is hopefully an ongoing series of Shipwrecks in the Forth just to start off with, so If you're interested in any shipwrecks, let me know and I can maybe do a video on them. Catch you soon.